right, wonderful. We are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm very excited today to have a great conversation because we have a question for you. And the question is, how often do you experience physical or emotional pain, symptoms, and signs of maybe an illness or a mental block, something that prevents you from achieving your goals and just having that happy and fulfilled and peaceful life that you desire? Wouldn't it be great to have tools to use to yourself through those blocks and to reduce that pain? So I'm Jody Solberg, and I am here to help you to really move through those blocks and those barriers to get to those roots, to figure out what is affecting you from things like trauma, anxiety, and burnout, helping you heal from within, embrace your own strengths and neurodiversity, and to create more peace, calm, joy, and harmony in your life while breaking those generational cycles. And I'm here today with one of my mentors and teachers, Mary Lee LaBay. And I'm really excited to interview Mary Lee, who is a 6-time author, acclaimed hypnotherapy instructor, and who certified me as a master hypnotherapist and transpersonal wellness coach. I've been a hypnotherapist for many years. I first studied when I was in grad school for clinical psychology about 23 years ago. And I ended up getting connected with Mary Lee. I'd heard of her because she is a renowned hypnotherapy instructor, and she was teaching here locally in the Seattle area. And I had a friend who was a nutritionist and hypnotherapist who studied with Mary Lee at Bastyr University. And I was really wanting to start my own private practice. When I was forming Psyched Up Success, I was coming out of doing a lot of work with court-appointed clients, as well as coaching, and keeping those things very separate. And I knew that I wanted to start my private hypnosis. I wanted to help people get to those core root causes, because the women I was working with in their businesses were dealing with all of those things I mentioned before that all of us deal with in their personal lives, and we're whole people. So we need to address the whole person. And I also knew that I wanted to work more virtually. And so I sought out Mary Lee. I searched to find where she was teaching and what she was up to, and found that she was teaching privately, and I signed up for her class. And so that's been about 5 years now. And I've just had such a privilege and an honor to be able to learn from Mary Lee for all of these years and to stay face. And so, like I said, really looking forward to having you all get to know her and to learn one of my favorite techniques that she teaches us, that I use with my clients every day. So Mary Lee, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself to everybody before we start our conversation about some of these really amazing techniques that we can use in physical pain, emotional pain, so many circumstances. So go ahead and take the floor.
Well, thank you, Jody, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. We've had so many connections over the years since you took the class, presenting at conferences and various activities. So it's fun to be here with you. Well, for my background, I think you explained it pretty well. I did start my career started more with my spiritual studies, and then past life regression. And then that led me to getting certified in hypnotherapy back in the 90s, and then certified as a certified instructor in 1999, I believe. And then I've been producing my courses for, I guess, 24 years now. And yeah, it's just such a pleasure, and it's a lot of fun. Hypnotherapy is just such a special field to be in, because we get to understand the human psyche so well, and to work with it to affect change so quickly and so deeply in a person without doing any harm, right? So, it's hypnotherapy these days, or at least the way that you and I practice it, is client-centered and not using scripts and not so much suggestions, but really digging in and allowing the subconscious mind or the client to access their own subconscious mind. And then we use the material that is mined there, and even their own will to want to make these changes. So uh, it's just a wonderful, wonderful career. And I'm excited to present one of the techniques today.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really drew me to you and your approach and your work was how client-centered it was. Like you said, it's not just about reading a script and one size fits all or giving suggestions only. It's really about having the client be in that position to find the answers from within, right? Their own inner wisdom, and having them lead us wherever they are meant to go. Because sometimes, if you have a plan ahead of time, like, okay, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to say this, and you have this script, the subconscious mind doesn't always want to focus on what you think you should be focusing on, right? It's going to focus on or take a curve towards whatever that person needs to address in that moment. And so that's one of the things that I really love about what you teach is how client-centered it is, because we all really do truly have those answers within us. And so I love the technique that we're going to talk about today so much, which is object imagery, because
Mhm.
it can be used in multiple different aspects. Like I had mentioned before, physical pain, emotional pain. So there are different times when that's appropriate to use, but it's so open-ended. We're really allowing the client subconscious to create these. Well, I'm going to have you talk about it a little bit more, but to create this experience for themselves, right? So it has their own experience because they may be dealing with chronic pain, but each client has a different manifestation of what those symptoms and those signs are going to be. They have a different place presents itself, or if it's emotional pain, right? It's always going to be different. I feel like we will never get bored with what we do because everyone is so unique and their circumstances are so different. And so why don't you share with everybody a little bit about, first of all, when we would recommend using object imagery and then what it really is.
Oh, well, you've kind of covered it, that you can use it whenever somebody is presenting with a pain, whether it's emotional or physical, it's some type of block. And so whenever they're describing things, and so when a client comes in and they're saying, oh, this relationship is like a ball and chain around my ankle, or I'm carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, or, this is such a pain in the butt, right? Or pain in the neck.
Mhm.
And they're giving you a description that, well, first of all, that it's a description, it's a visual imagination or metaphor for what they're feeling, or like, I just keep running into the wall, or um, I'm just trying to think of some off the top of my head. But
Yeah.
so whenever they come in and they're describing something like that, we can latch right onto that, because in their subconscious mind, they've already formulated a picture, and that may already be a story or could be developed into a story. And then what we want to do is take that picture and manipulate it so that it's working positively for the client instead of against them. And so if it's a physical pain, perhaps we can shrink it or change it from a fiery red to a cool blue, or from something rough and spiky to something smooth. or change it altogether into something that works well for them. For instance, I had a client, and this is such a universal technique that we have tons of clients we can access. But for instance, a client came in and she was grieving the loss of her mother. And she described it like this big black stone in her chest, in her heart. And as we worked with it, we discovered that she was carrying it around because, um, on the negative side, of course, it was weighing her down, it was keeping her depressed, all of the negatives. But on the positive side, she said, but it reminds me that I love my mother. And if I didn't have this, then it would feel like I didn't love her enough. And so through the therapy, we were able to turn that into more of a monument in her heart that was, surrounded with flowers and, more of a little altar instead of having this heavy boulder, the black heavy boulder in her chest. She had this beautiful representation of the relationship that she had with her mother and the love between them instead of focusing on the grief, right? And so just by manipulating the nature of the image, we were able to change the feeling and the purpose of that sensation. One of many stories. So another story, I'll give you one more and then we can go on. But another story that I have was working with a lady with fibromyalgia. And she came in and she was complaining of, various pains around her body, which is very typical for fibromyalgia. They move, it's in the shoulder and then it's in the knee and then it's in the back. And, there's pain everywhere all the time. And so what we did was we took the pain that she was experiencing in that particular moment that day, because of course it could change. And I'm thinking we went into a shoulder, this was many years ago anyway. And within that shoulder, she would describe these various objects. And then each object, in her case, led her to a different past life regression where she remembered being injured in that location. So one, she had fallen off some like bleachers at a sporting event and broke her shoulder. Another one, she was crushed in a lifetime and it involved that shoulder. Anyway, we kept going. And then when we released the pain by actually observing the past life, but then we were able to release the pain and then it would move. And so then we had to deal with her hip and then, and so some of these, that's not really the typical function of object imagery, but yet we use that technique to go in, then we use the past lives, then we come back into, to release the trauma in other lifetimes. And then we come back and use, finish up with object imagery again, making sure that that location is clear. And either we have replaced it with something more comfortable or it's cleared out and it's gone completely. So a couple different ways of using the technique.
Absolutely. And, speaking to what you mentioned earlier about people will come in and they'll say, the weight of the world on my shoulders, things of that nature. A lot of my history working with people with their traumas, of course, we start out of that in our bodies. And so for me, I'm asking a lot of times with object imagery, like, where are they holding that? Because everyone has an idea of where they might hold their stress, their tension, their anxiety. Sometimes they're not aware of where they are holding that trauma, but I've had clients who have things in their jaws, right in their shoulders, about shoulders or their gut. A lot of people with clients that I've had with IBS and different digestive issues, or holding things in those areas, or of course, back pain. Like you said, sometimes with fibromyalgia, it might be a little bit all over the place. And so,
Right.
really identifying onto those things, how is that operating? What, like you said, potential benefit. That was real. It's always fascinating, like you had mentioned with the client, where you turned that into more of an altar and something more positive. So you can replace it with something that's going to serve and support them better than pain, whatever that reminder is, or whatever it is that's trying to protect them. There's so many ways that that pain can be given, or a signal that there's something deeper going on. And I think in our society, we are taught so much to override. We're taught to disconnect, that our minds and our bodies are separate, and that is not the case. We're one entity. And so everything is so much more connected than we realize it is. But we're taught from a really young age, and I talk about this so much, that, from when we're little and we go to school, to ignore our body signs and
Mhm.
symptoms. We're taught, well, you have to wait for the bell to ring before room, or get a drink, or get some food. If you're hungry, you have to wait. And so then what that trains us to do is to feel more and more and more disconnected from ourselves. And so what I find is object imagery is such a great way. It's one of the tools that I love to use to help people to reconnect and to identify, okay, so what's going on? Or, my subconscious is storing these emotions, or this energy, or these traumas from the past, like different parts of my body, and then this is how it's manifesting. And they really get a lot of insight. They get so much insight into how they've been processing or not processing, these different emotions and these different signs and symptoms that their body is giving them. And I find that after you do that healing work and that therapy through the object imagery, then they have a much higher awareness of
Mm.
when they are storing those things in the future. They really are shifting that program of, oh, I'm just going to put it all on my shoulders. Every single time, they start to notice right away after that, oh, I have to feel my shoulders. I need to do something about it. And instead, just constantly, overriding and pushing through and all the things that we're taught to do, and just, keep going, ignore it. And so they are actually learning how to recognize and then take care of themselves better.
Exactly. And I feel that the human body is this perfect signal. Our subconscious mind can try to get our attention in so many ways. And when we don't pick up on it intuitively early, it starts to make it more manifest into the physical body. So if the subconscious mind is saying, this job is too stressful, or it's a dead end road, or and you're not listening and just saying, okay, I need to go out and get a different job, and you just keep plodding away at it, over time it's going to show up as that stress on your body, and then things start falling apart, right? And
Mhm.
hopefully people come to the hypnotherapist at a time when we can really reverse that quickly, right? My ideal is to come when it's at the level of stress, and not wait until it's at the level of disease, because these things will, not always, but oftentimes they will manifest if you really do not take care of it at that first, those first hints, that first signal of distress. If you don't handle it, then it will continue to get louder and louder until you take care of it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That happened to me. That was actually where I was, just like not even a year before I came into your course. Actually, the first time is I was at a point where I wasn't healing the way that I could have. Uh,
mm,
there was a lot going on. I had a lot of physical and emotional stress and things that were happening in life, where my body was starting to tell me for a while there, right? You need to slow down and make some different choices. And I was just trying to push through. And that was the catalyst deciding to kind of take those two talking about with my two careers basically and merge them and start my hypnotherapy practice. That's why I sought your course out, because I knew that I make some lifestyle shifts. So I decided in 2018 going into 2019, that was time, it was happening. I needed to make some major shifts. And I'm sure you probably remember this. I was actually going to a course in person,
Mm-hmm.
and this was pandemic, and I was going to come to your course in person. And I actually ended up doing it online. I think it was one of your first courses that you gave
Mm-hmm.
online, because I ended up tearing my knee. I'd gone on a cruise and tore a ligament in my knee, and I was laid up for a few months. And that was literally, to me, that because it wasn't anything unusual, it wasn't this major accident. I stepped wrong on a
Oh
step.
no.
It was just this thing where it was like, okay, apparently I'm doing the right thing. I was already enrolled in the course. I'd been talking about it on the cruise that, like, when I get home, this is what I'm doing. It was in October, and then November your course started, and I was like, apparently this is right where I'm supposed to be, because now I can't do anything else. And I feel like that happens to us.
Oh,
We get these little signs and symptoms and we ignore them, and something will happen if you keep overriding and ignoring. You do something that's going to take you out and make you listen. And
right.
for me, it was like, okay, that's confirmation for me. Now I'm laid up. This is the perfect time for me to sit and do this course, and I can do it online. And it all worked out. And then, of course, I started getting ready to knee in February of 2020 and in March. And so I was so decision, that my subconscious was really communicating with me and telling me this, it's time to do this, because I already was set up. I already had clients. I was already, setting up my practice. Everything was working towards that end before we even had to. So I always feel very fortunate that I found you before that, so that like I had to, I had the opportunity to, really start strong in my practice. And I did some work with some of my colleagues in the class at the to really pinpoint. And some of the things were object imagery was one of the things that I worked through, of like, okay, so what's going on underneath this to cause this, and to have this be something attention to, right? And so I actually got to experience it for myself in that moment. And for me, it was really recovering from and preventing future burnout. And that's a big topic that I work with clients on now, because I had gone through that. Like I said, that year before I took your course, that's like, I have to listen and not go back to my old ways, because that's what happens a lot. We go back to our old patterns and habits again. I would push myself and add more to the plate and get physically exhausted, and then I would say, oh yes, I need to rest and recover, because of course I knew how to do that. I was teaching other people how to do it for so many years.
Right.
And so I would take the time, but then what would happen is I'd go right back to that, because I personally had an underlying limiting belief, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, of you have to work really, really hard to be successful, hard. And yes, my ancestors may have had to do that, but that's not something, that I, in this day and age, really need to do. I don't have to work myself into the ground in order to be successful. So even the more in the past, the more money I made, or the more successful I was, the harder I thought I had to push myself. And
Mm.
so that was the big shift that I was making for myself, going into that. And then, like I said, my body and my subconscious were just like, okay, well, if you're not going to listen, we're going to make you listen. And like you said, we prefer if our before that, of course. I always say
Right.
the best time to, burn out and to keep that from happening is before it starts, but the next best time is now. So if you're, if
Right.
somebody's listening today and, they're like, I'm feeling about here on the stress level, and I'm having this kind of chronic issue, whether it's stress, physically, emotionally, this thing that keeps coming up. I call them the weeds, right? The things that keep popping up, and then
Mhm.
you have to mow them down, and then they keep popping up again. You have to mow them back down. It's like, it's time, if that's where you're at, to figure out what that root is, because that's what I feel like we do. We help them identify that root, pull that out, replace it, like you mentioned with object imagery, right? With something that's going to serve and support them better, and heal that area so they can move, and not just keep having to do what I was doing in the past, which is just mow it down to pop back up again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like weeds.
So it was helpful for me. Yeah. When
Yeah.
I experienced it as well, it was,
Well, it's good that you listen to your intuition. Even, sometimes, we take it just a little too far, but at least, you were listening and you were responding and stepping up, which put you in the right position, at least for your company, uh, pre-pandemic, right? Or when the pandemic hit. And what happens is a lot of times we don't. And people talk about, oh, I want to be more intuitive. And one of the first steps is paying attention and responding. And I've noticed this with my own self. So many times I get the message like, oh, be sure to take your umbrella, or, grab the umbrella, something like that. And I'll think, yeah, no, I'm not going to go back in the house for the umbrella. And then, I get someplace and it's like, why didn't I listen? I knew better.
mhm.
And that's just a super simple example of that. But um, one of the things with intuition is when you get that hit, in the beginning, you've got to respond and then play with that. And then you'll get better at, okay, I should respond to this kind of a message and maybe not so often to that message. And so you'll hone that intuitive skill. The other part of your story that I wanted to comment on was um, that, so many people kind of keep their feet in both sides of the pie, right? I want to make this
Mhm.
change, and yet I don't want to let go of who I was. I want to be this new person, but I don't want to let go of that. So it's sort of like piling on the extra work. I want to build my business, but I don't want to let go of anything that I have. And so then the stress, continues to rise. And I'm guilty of this as well. Just, oh, I can take that on, I can take that on. But there's things that have to let go. And it's a lot like if you kept taking an in breath, if you keep breathing in without exhaling, yeah, right, you're going to explode, right? Or you keep
Mhm.
eating, but you don't eliminate, right? Um, so many examples of that. The inhale one is one I refer to a lot in my own head is, oh, I need to exhale here. And, it's sort of like when you downsize in your house or you clean out a drawer, it's easy to just keep throwing things in there. But then when you clean it out, it just feels so good, right?
Mhm.
And so we have to make that commitment. And the same thing in hypnotherapy is we have to, as we're going through hypnotherapy, we become this new creature, I call it, right? We become this more ideal version of ourselves. And it's so important to let go of the old version. So, like in my example of the lady that was grieving her mother, she needed to hold on to the image of the altar now, because if she goes home and says, oh, I'm so used to, that big rock in my chest, that's my familiar zone, that's my comfort zone. Even though I know it's not good for me and it's not useful in any way, I think I'll just try it back on again for size, right? Or I'll, let me hang on to that and the altar. It's just not going to work. And so in everything we do, when we learn something new, and when we decide to be this new version of ourselves, it's important to really cleanly let go of the old parts that are no longer serving us, which I think you
Yeah,
did very
that's
well,
such a
by the way. But it just came up in your story. It's like, okay,
yeah.
here's a point to bring up. Um, yeah, so
Mhm.
good. Is there
Yeah,
anything
we
else?
have to release.
Yes, have to do the release. So is there anything else we need to discuss around object imagery? Um, do we want to go?
I think just in general with hypnotherapy, I love how we give people tools and resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things that they are going to be able to, yes, utilize in the also moving forward. That's something that I really enjoy so much about it. And the way that you teach is that we're giving these people these tools and this ability to, resolve inner conflict and to reduce pain and suffering and so many of these different things that they're going to be able to utilize. Like you said, just even your breath and you go to that in your mind, like, oh yeah, I need to exhale, I need to release something. And so even those things, those little insights and the metaphors and things that we give ourselves as tools in these sessions, that our clients are then able to take those and they can run with them. And so I know that people watching, they may be interested in potentially having this as an option to be able to offer their own clients, if they're in helping professions, if they're healers, if they're in a position to be helping people, this might be something for them, yes, because it's amazing for us, but also to be able to offer when they serve others. And so I would love for you to share a little bit about your courses, because I know that you have another upcoming course in July. Is that correct? And so, yeah, so share a little bit about kind of who is taking your courses and what you're offering, what you're teaching.
Okay. So the course is definitely valuable for people who are in any kind of holistic healing, energy work, coaching, anything like that, because there's just such a wide variety of techniques that you learn that can help your own clients break through wherever they're stuck. And so the course is the same one that I developed at Bastyr University and Bellevue College, where I taught for over a span at various times over 20 years. And now I have it on teachable.com, and Jody will give you a link for that. And it gives the entire course in hypnotherapy, and I've coupled it together with my entire course on past life regression. And the reason is that, just like I used the example earlier, oftentimes clients will spontaneously go into past lives, or the root causes are in another lifetime. And so I felt that any practitioner who is out there needs to have all the tools available and all the education. So when people register for the course, they can start studying immediately. You have access to all of the materials, all of the education. And then periodically throughout the year, I add in live support calls. And these are included. You don't pay anything extra. And I show up, and it's 20 hours. So it's 10 weeks of 2 hours each. And during those calls, we come together as a community. So you get to connect with other people who are learning. Um, I give demonstrations of the techniques. We discuss them. We discuss any problems that the students are facing in either in their studies, in their understanding of the material, and more particularly, the questions come up with their practice sessions and how could I have done this better, or where did I get stuck, or something like that. Um, so it's very casual. Oftentimes I'm teaching yet a new technique, something that they can add in that wasn't already included in the course. And so the next round of calls will start July 16th, and they go from 6 to 8 in the evening, and those are Tuesday evenings, and that's Pacific time. And so, that works out pretty much for anybody from Australia all the way up to the East Coast, if they don't mind staying up a little too late. And so, there's a wide range of places you can be from. I've had students from, not all over the world, but across Canada, Mexico, South Africa, Belgium, Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, England, all sorts. Oh, the Bahamas, Puerto Rico, so all around. And it's really fun. It's fun to meet the people, everybody that comes to my class, because of the nature of what I teach and the topics. Um, the people that come are all very heart-centered, holistic. We can have conversations. Oftentimes the students will say, I can't talk about this to anybody else, like past lives and spiritual topics. And, nothing is off limits in the conversations, energy work, that sort of thing. So it's really nice to have this community. All the students are also invited into our private Facebook group, the Soulful Hypnotherapy Community. And everybody in there has been trained with me. And that way we are all speaking the same language. We talk about the techniques. People can post their own events or research, talk about their book that's been published, whatever they want to talk about. But they can also come and ask questions and get support from the community. They can also go in and ask to exchange sessions so they can find practice partners. Or also, what I think is kind of a hidden bonus is that for the rest of your life, you're a member of this group. And if you have something come up, you can say, hey, does anybody, I'm stuck here, or I need help with this. Does anybody want to exchange this session? And so you're getting free hypnotherapy services. If you would like, you can get your own issues worked out with another colleague. So it's just a beautiful thing. Oh, and then another bonus is you can access the online material anytime. So you can go back and review, and I really suggest that people do, because the first time through, it's a lot of information. And then you can repeat the calls anytime, and there's no fee to repeat any of that. And so a lot of the students come in, they take the first round and they get certified and they start getting out in the world and start practicing. And then they come back and they come to the support calls again, because now their understanding of the material and the techniques have matured. They're not just like, what is the name of that technique and when am I going to put it, to use? They're coming back with another, kind of a higher level of questions and input. And so every round of calls is a combination of returning students and new students. So even in your practice sessions, you might be working with somebody that has a little bit more practice. And in sharing the different practice sessions, you're seeing how different people apply the techniques. The way that I teach it, it's not like you have to do everything exactly the way I do it. I don't think that's necessary. You'll find ways to use the techniques. I give you the structure of the techniques, and then, the next step is to get off of any scripts, right? I do provide scripts just so that you can learn what is the wording here and, really understand how to apply the technique. But then in the sessions, you're going to be doing that without a script so that everything is really flowing for your clients, and it's very organic, and you're moving through there in a way that helps the client in the best way. Um, so as you're practicing, you're going to come back into those calls and have a lot more experience and a lot more sophisticated questions, perhaps. So, did I leave anything out? Because Jody, you've been to the classes.
Yeah, I think it was pretty thorough. I love all of those extra benefits that you talked about. I definitely try to take advantage of them whenever I can. And I'm excited that you're going to have some evening classes. So that's going to be wonderful. Like you said, people can access the online material anytime. And then, they can come live, or there's replays, of course,
That's
of
true.
the classes as well. So if you aren't able to make that with the time, then, the replays are very valuable, as well as the community. And so, yeah, there's so many benefits. I, like I said, love to take advantage of the fact that I can come back and learn. Because as you said, first of all, I believe in continuous learning, and that we've never arrived, and we're always learning more and more, but we're also able to share input from our own experiences. But then also it's always evolving. You're always adding more to the course, or you're sharing different insights or some different techniques that maybe aren't in the material. And I also wanted to mention that you recently uh, released a new book, so a new textbook, Mastering Hypnotherapy. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm excited about that as well, because it does share a lot of those techniques, but there's nothing that can replace that learning experience that you were describing. I feel like it's so hands-on, as well as just, you know, there's a depth to it. When you're able to have that textbook and have the online course, and then experience your teaching live, because you do demos on all of these
Mhm.
classes. All of our live classes, there are demos, so you're getting to observe, as well as potentially, like you said, participate and work on some stuff that you
Yeah.
may want to work on as well, in those. And so I feel like it's a very well-rounded experience. And you mentioned the link. So the link is in the description. I'm also going to just pop it up on the screen so everybody can see it. But it's also in the description of the video, so everyone will be able to find that link to be able to check out all of your courses and programs, because you offer quite a few options, in addition, of course, to what we're talking about today, which is that integrative hypnotherapy program.
Yeah, and I made a special link or a special coupon code for
Oh,
your
great.
people. Did I give
Okay.
that to you?
I'm not sure if you did. So yeah, if you can pop it in the comments, I can put it up on the screen as well. And then,
Okay. Hold on, because now I'm going to have to go back and see what I
okay, yeah,
did.
we'll make sure everybody gets that coupon code.
Yeah, I think it's Jody 20. So,
Okay,
what I did was, oh, they're making me do all this stuff to sign in. Hold on.
of course.
Um, um, what I did was, right now for everybody else, it's
Hmm.
10% off. So they're saving $350. For your group, I went ahead and gave a 20% discount, and
Okay.
it's so that's $700 off, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fantastic.
and that will end. I'm just struggling to get in here. Hold on a second.
Yeah, we'll just verify, make sure we have the right
Yeah,
coupon code. We'll get it to everybody. But that ends, it was at the 29th at the end of the month?
yeah, it's either the 29th or the 30th. So
Yeah.
I know the normal one for everybody else ends on the 29th. Okay, I'm going to go in here. You can
Yeah,
talk for a minute.
you said that. Yeah, I remember seeing your 10% off. So thank you for creating that coupon code for us, for everyone who's watching. That's wonderful because that's a really significant savings and just a great opportunity to learn more again for your own healing and growth as well as to help others, as a supplement. I know you have a lot of different kinds of people who take your courses. So they may be people that were like me and are coming from that mental or behavioral health background, but then there's a lot of people who are coaches and
Mhm.
massage therapists or any kind of healing or helping profession, really.
Okay, here's the code. You're going to get 20% off. It ends at midnight on the 30th. And
Okay.
the code is capital J. Everything is capitalized. J O
Okay.
D JODIE 20. So JODIE 20, Jody 20, all one word, all capitalized.
Okay. Great. So I'm going to pop this up on our screen so that everybody can see that as well. And then I'll make sure it'll be here in the comments, and I'll make sure to put that in all the places so everyone can see that. Let's try that. There we go. So just like that, Jody 20.
Perfect.
All right. So 20% off. So on the hypnotherapy course, then it's going to be $700 savings. That's amazing until end of the night, June 30th, midnight Pacific. So everyone will have the opportunity to utilize that towards that program. Like I said, I can't recommend it enough. It's something that, like I said, I decided to take because I wanted to have that continuing education. I had, learned hypnotherapy a lot of years ago, about the same time you started teaching. I think it was 2001, so 23 years ago. And for me, it was really important, of course, that continuing education and to learn that client-centered approach. That was really important to me. That resonated with me so much of, first of all, how to create an online business, not just incorporating it in to what I was doing, but I really wanted to create a hypnotherapy practice for me personally. And so that was such an amazing opportunity to learn from you, someone who has been in this realm, in this industry for so long and been teaching for, like I said, as long as I have been, in the field as well. And it was something that I felt really drawn to, and I have never regretted it. I've always been so glad to have taken that course. And that's why I keep showing up. I keep hanging out. As long as Mary Lee will let me, I will show up and I will be there. As long as the door is open, absolutely, because I truly believe in the work. I believe in the approach that you teach. And like I said, whether this is just, supplemental and something that you're like, hey, I just really feel like I need some more tools and resources for clients, or it's something where you're wanting to make a shift and start a new career and a new practice. I know we have people in the current class that are on both ends of the spectrum. There's some
Mm-hmm.
people who this is brand new to, and they didn't know anything about hypnosis, and here they are because they realize that there's another level, there's a deeper level that they can first get to for themselves and then help others with. And so just thank you for your generosity of spirit,
Welcome.
welcoming everybody into your space, because it really has been, like I said, such a great journey and such a privilege to be able to learn from you so closely. Thank you.
Oh, Thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful having you in class. You always contribute wonderful things that, because you have so much more experience
Mhm.
than a lot of the students do, your input is also very valuable. What I like about the Zoom calls that we have is that the classes are really not that big.
Mhm.
Usually less than a dozen students, and we make sure that everybody has a voice. Anybody who has a comment or a question or a concern gets to speak up and ask their questions. And then also, like you said, I do demonstrations. And
Mhm.
so, yeah. And some of the new people are sometimes shy. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to be a demo person in front of everybody. But once they do it, then they're volunteering all the time.
Mhm.
First of all, it's a very safe space. Just as the same as if you are, a counselor working out in the field, we keep that confidentiality, but also then they get the benefit of a session with me, right?
Mhm.
Uh, which has quite a bit of value to it. And so they get to have something shift inside of them, whether it's holding back, launching their career or, um, something in their relationship, or it doesn't even matter what the topic is. Or we go in and explore past lives and, get rid of past life trauma or something. They're always fascinating, educational, and, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a lot of fun, and it's like such a benefit to be able to be there live, but also the online course is amazing. And so, yeah, take advantage of as much as you can and soak it all in, because that knowledge is built over so many decades, personal experience as well as that professional experience as well. So thank you for offering that. And I also want to mention, because you are going to be also my guest to speak at our next National Guild of Hypnotists Washington chapter meeting. So I want to mention that, because I'm the president and events coordinator of the NGH Washington chapter. And so for anybody who is local or wants to join on Zoom, because it'll be available on Zoom as well, on June 13th, which is a Saturday from 10 to noon, Mary Lee is going to be speaking for us at our monthly chapter meeting. So she's going to actually be sharing different techniques than we did today. So today we talked about object imagery, and she's going to be talking about her reverse metaphor technique, which is very unique and such a benefit to be able to use with clients. Again, instead of being scripted and telling them the story, they get to tell us the story. There's so much richness and insight that comes from that. So I'm really excited for you to also come and speak there. And so we will have that available, and that's right before this next round of your hypnotherapy course
Yeah,
begins.
July
And
13th. I think
so,
you said June 13th.
yeah, anyone who would like to be our guest, definitely contact me about that. Oh,
Okay.
sorry,
Okay.
July 13th. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
June.
All of a
Yeah.
sudden I thought, oh my God, I think I put it in the calendar wrong. And then I realized it's too
No,
late.
July. Thank you.
July 13th. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's June
excited.
21st today. So July. Yeah, it makes sense. Apparently, I have too much allergy medicine going on today.
Yeah,
I know what month it is, but yeah,
good,
but
good,
yeah. So
good.
July 13th, you will be there. So in just a few weeks, and so I'll make sure to post some of that information in the comments. And like I said, anyone can contact me if they're interested, because we are going to be live in Montlake Terrace, Washington. So if you're local in the Seattle area, we'll be in Montlake Terrace, or you can also join on Zoom. So definitely feel free to let me know, contact me if you would like to join us, and we'll get you all of that information. But thank you, Mary Lee, for being so, again, generous with your time and with your wisdom of sharing with us today. I appreciate it so much. And is there anything that you would like to say in closing?
No, but thank you so much for inviting me. And I really look forward to seeing you in person on the 13th, and maybe anybody else in the audience. Let's get together. So, um, yeah, thank you. And if anybody has questions, I'm also available. You can um, look me up, and my website is my name, maryleelabay.com. And you can reach out if you have any questions, particularly about the training, and tell me that, you saw me with Jody today, and we can talk about the training if you have questions before you register.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And we will see you soon. Just reminder, as always, I like to remind everyone to take care of yourself first before everything and everyone else. And we will see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.